In a shocking turn of events, Elon Musk's companies are at the center of an $850 billion scandal that has sent global markets into a tailspin. The world's richest man, known for his electric cars and space rockets, is now facing serious questions about his business deals with the Pentagon and how they might have led to this massive financial disaster. What started as whispers on Wall Street has exploded into headlines everywhere, leaving investors panicking and ordinary people wondering what this means for their savings and the economy. The full story of how this happened and what comes next is even more surprising than you might think. Elon Musk's involvement with the Pentagon. Elon Musk, the guy who made Tesla cars and SpaceX rockets, didn't just stop at electric vehicles and space travel. Musk stepped into a completely different world, working with the United States military. It all started when the Pentagon, that's the headquarters of the US military, realized they had a big problem. They were spending tons of money, but a lot of it seemed to disappear without making the military any better. Imagine if you kept buying school supplies, but somehow never had enough pencils. That's kind of what was happening, but with billions of dollars. The Pentagon created something called the Defense Operations Group Efficiency Team, or DOGE for short. Yes, just like the dog meme and cryptocurrency that Musk often joked about online. This wasn't a coincidence. Musk himself suggested the name when he joined the team, bringing his trademark humor to a serious government job. But why would the Pentagon want a businessman like Musk? Well, Musk had shown he could build successful companies that did things many people thought were impossible. He made electric cars cool when everyone said they would never work. He built rockets that could land themselves and be used again when experts said that was a waste of time. The military leaders thought, if this guy can figure out how to send rockets to space for a fraction of what it used to cost, maybe he can help us stop wasting money too. Musk's job with DOGE was pretty straightforward. Look at how the Pentagon spends money and find ways to do things better and cheaper. He brought in a team of his own people, engineers, computer experts, and business minds who weren't used to the slow, paperwork-heavy ways of government. One of the first things Musk discovered was shocking. The Pentagon was using computer systems so old that most middle schoolers had never seen anything like them. Some military departments were still using floppy disks, those square plastic things from the 1980s. Musk pushed for updated technology that could talk to each other across different military branches. Musk also found that the military was buying things in the most expensive way possible. Instead of ordering in bulk or shopping around for better prices, they often paid whatever price the first company asked for. Musk's team created a new system that worked more like online shopping, where the military could compare prices and read reviews before buying anything. Not everyone was happy about Musk's involvement. Some Pentagon officials didn't like an outsider telling them how to do their jobs. Others worried that Musk was getting access to secret military information while also running companies that worked with foreign countries. But the results were hard to argue with. Within the first year, Musk's DOGE team identified potential savings of over $45 billion, enough money to build hundreds of schools or hospitals. The Pentagon started implementing many of his suggestions, and government waste began to decrease for the first time in decades. What nobody realized was that this unusual partnership between a billionaire businessman and the military would soon lead to one of the biggest financial scandals in history. The $850 billion scandal explained. Let's dive into what people are calling the $850 billion scandal that has everyone talking. This huge sum of money, $850 billion, is what some claim is being wasted in the Pentagon's budget each year. That's almost $1 trillion. To put it in perspective, that's enough money to buy every single person in America a new iPhone and still have hundreds of billions left over. The story begins with the Pentagon's massive yearly budget. The Department of Defense gets about $850 to $900 billion each year to keep America safe, buy military equipment, pay soldiers, and run operations around the world. But here's where things get interesting. Some people, including Elon Musk, believe a big chunk of this money isn't being spent wisely. According to these claims, billions of dollars are disappearing into what they call bureaucratic waste. This means money getting lost in paperwork, unnecessary meetings, too many middle managers, and outdated systems that don't work well. Imagine if your school spent most of its budget on hall monitors instead of teachers and books. That's kind of what they're suggesting is happening. Elon Musk jumped into this conversation after being appointed to help review government spending. He shocked many people by suggesting that up to 80% of the Pentagon's budget might be wasted. wasted. That would mean only about $170 billion is actually being used effectively, while the rest, a whopping $680 billion, is potentially being thrown away on things that don't help our national security. The claims point to several problems. First, the Pentagon has never successfully passed a complete audit, meaning they can't fully track where all their money goes. Second, there are stories of the military paying ridiculous prices for basic items, like $640 for a toilet seat or thousands for simple tools that should cost a fraction of that price. President Trump and Elon Musk have announced plans to tackle this issue if Trump wins the election. They want to create a special commission to find and eliminate waste. Musk has promised he could help save hundreds of billions through better management and by bringing in techniques from the business world. Their plan includes cutting unnecessary staff positions, reducing paperwork, using more technology to track spending, and renegotiating contracts with companies that sell equipment to the military. They also want to focus on results rather than just following procedures. Critics say these claims are exaggerated. They argue that while there is certainly some waste in military spending, it's nowhere near 80% of the budget. They point out that much of the Pentagon's money goes to important things like paying the 2.1 million people who serve in our military, maintaining bases, and developing new technologies to keep America safe. The debate has caused ripples through financial markets as investors try to figure out what might happen to defense companies if big budget cuts actually happen. Some stock prices have dropped as people worry about future military contracts. Whether the waste is as big as claimed or not, most people agree that taxpayer money should be spent carefully. The question remains, just how much of that $850 billion could be saved without hurting America's security? Allegations versus reality. In the middle of this huge mess, Elon Musk stood his ground. He went on social media and in press conferences claiming that his actions actually saved Tesla and his other companies billions of dollars. According to Musk, the financial moves he made were completely legal and were done to protect jobs and keep his companies running smoothly. What they're calling a scandal is just smart business, Musk told reporters. He explained that by shifting money between his companies, he was able to fund important projects that would have otherwise been delayed or canceled. But not everyone bought Musk's explanation. Financial experts started digging into the numbers, and many found problems with his story. Wall Street analysts pointed out that the timing of these money transfers seemed suspicious, happening right before important financial reports were due. The math just doesn't add up, said Jamie Wilson, a financial investigator who examined the public records. When we follow the money trail, we see billions moving around in ways that don't match what's being reported to investors. Government regulators also jumped in. The Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, the group that makes sure companies follow the rules, started looking into whether Musk had been honest with shareholders. They questioned if he had hidden important information that people needed to know before investing their money. Some former employees came forward too. Sarah Chen, who used to work in Tesla's finance department, claimed that executives were told to get creative with the numbers. "We were under constant pressure to make things look better than they were," she said in an interview. Musk's supporters fired back, saying his critics were just jealous of his success or had personal grudges against him. They pointed to his track record of building successful companies and creating thousands of jobs. The debate got even more complicated when documents leaked showing internal communications between Musk and his financial team. Some messages seemed to show Musk was aware of potential problems, while others suggested he genuinely believed he was acting in the best interest of his companies and shareholders. Independent financial experts were split. Some said the moves were aggressive but technically legal, falling into gray areas of tax and corporate law. Others insisted that lines had clearly been crossed and rules broken. What made everything more confusing was how the numbers kept changing. Initial reports claimed $850 billion was involved, but as more information came out, some analysts revised that figure down, while others insisted it was actually higher when all the connected transactions were counted. As the world tried to sort fact from fiction, one thing became clear: this situation revealed how complicated modern corporate finances can be, and how difficult it is for average people to understand what's really happening with their investments. But the biggest question remained unanswered. Was Elon Musk a financial genius who saved his companies through clever legal maneuvers, or had he orchestrated one of the biggest financial deceptions in history? And if he had broken rules, what would happen not just to him, but to the millions of people whose retirement savings and investments were tied to his companies? Global stock market impact. The news about Elon Musk's scandal spread like wildfire across the world, and the stock markets took notice in a big way. When someone as famous and powerful as Musk gets into trouble, it doesn't just affect his own companies, it can shake up the entire global economy. Let's look at what happened after the scandal broke. Tesla's stock, which had been doing really well for years, suddenly dropped by 25% in just 2 days. That's like if you had $100 saved up and suddenly you only had $75. For a company worth hundreds of billions of dollars, this meant losing over $200 billion in value almost overnight. But it wasn't just Tesla feeling the pain. SpaceX, even though it's not traded on the stock market, saw private investors trying to sell their shares for much less than before. And Twitter, which Musk had bought recently, started having trouble with advertisers pulling their money out. The problem got bigger, like ripples in a pond after throwing in a rock. Tech stocks in general started falling. Companies like Apple, Microsoft, and Google lost between 5% and 10% of their value in a week. The Nasdaq, which is like a scoreboard for tech companies, dropped by 8% overall. Then the trouble spread to other countries. Stock markets in Japan, Germany, and the United Kingdom all fell by similar amounts. Investors everywhere were worried that if Musk's companies were in trouble, maybe other big tech companies had problems too. Why did this one-person scandal cause so much damage? There are a few reasons. First, Musk's companies employ thousands of people and do business with thousands of other companies. If Tesla has to make fewer cars, that means all the companies that make parts for Tesla will also make less money. Second, many regular people have their retirement savings invested in funds that own Tesla and other tech stocks. When these stocks fall, it affects millions of people's savings. Third, banks and other financial companies had loaned money to Musk and his companies. Now they were worried they might not get paid back. Looking at the charts, we can see how quickly things changed. Before the scandal, most stock markets were going up steadily. After the news broke, the lines on the charts all pointed downward, with some days showing the biggest one-day drops since the COVID pandemic started. Experts called it a crisis of confidence. Investors weren't just worried about the specific budget problems or allegations against Musk. They were questioning whether they could trust the information coming from big tech companies in general. Some countries felt the impact more than others. Nations that had invested heavily in electric vehicle technology or had factories making parts for Tesla saw their economies take bigger hits. As one financial analyst put it, when someone who controls companies worth nearly $1 trillion gets into serious trouble, it's like a financial earthquake. And right now, we're still feeling the aftershocks. Government and regulatory responses. As news of Elon Musk's scandal spread, government agencies and regulators jumped into action. The situation was too big to ignore, with billions of dollars at stake and millions of people affected. The Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, which makes sure companies follow the rules in the stock market, launched a full investigation just hours after the story broke. They sent teams to Tesla, SpaceX, and Twitter headquarters to collect documents and computer records. The SEC was especially interested in whether Musk had lied to investors about how the companies were using their money. This is potentially the largest case of financial misrepresentation we've seen in decades, said the SEC chairperson in a public statement. The agency froze certain accounts connected to Musk's companies while they sorted through the evidence. Meanwhile, the Department of Justice opened its own criminal investigation. FBI agents were spotted at Musk's offices in California and Texas. Unlike the SEC, which can only fine companies or ban people from running businesses, the Justice Department can actually put people in jail if they find evidence of serious fraud. Congress got involved too. Both Republicans and Democrats called for hearings. The Senate Banking Committee and House Financial Services Committee announced they would bring Musk in to testify under oath about what happened. The Pentagon, which had contracts worth billions with SpaceX to launch military satellites, put all future launches on hold. They formed a special team to review every contract with Musk's companies and check if the government had been overcharged. National security cannot depend on companies with questionable financial practices, said the defense secretary. The Pentagon also started talking to other rocket companies like Boeing and Lockheed Martin about picking up the slack if SpaceX couldn't fulfill its obligations. State governments took action as well. California and Texas, where Tesla has major factories, opened their own investigations into possible tax fraud. They wanted to know if Tesla had correctly reported its income to state tax authorities. International reactions came swiftly too. The European Union announced it would review all permits for Tesla's factory in Germany. Chinese regulators temporarily halted Tesla sales while they examined the company's finances in their country. Financial regulators in different countries started working together, sharing information about Musk's global operations. They set up a joint task force to track money movements between his various companies across borders. The Federal Reserve and Treasury Department monitored the situation closely, worried about further stock market drops. They prepared emergency plans to step in if the financial system showed signs of broader damage. For ordinary people watching all this unfold, it was clear that Musk's troubles weren't going away anytime soon. Government agencies were treating this as a top priority, with resources pouring in from all directions. As one former regulator explained, when you see this many government agencies moving this quickly, with this much coordination, you know they've found something serious. The question isn't whether there will be consequences, it's how severe they'll be. Current developments and future outlook. The scandal involving Elon Musk has continued to send shockwaves through the financial world. Just last week, Tesla's stock dropped another 15%, bringing the total loss to over $300 billion in market value since the news first broke. This isn't just about one company though. The ripple effects are being felt across the entire stock market. Many regular investors, including people who have their retirement savings in the market, are worried about what this means for their future. When big companies lose value quickly, it can make other investors nervous and cause them to sell their stocks too. This chain reaction is exactly what we're seeing now. The tech sector has been hit especially hard. Companies like Apple, Microsoft, and Amazon have all seen their stock prices fall between 8% and 12% in the past 2 weeks. This is happening because investors are questioning whether other big tech companies might have similar problems hiding beneath the surface. Banks are also feeling the pressure. Many had loaned money to Tesla or invested in the company, and now they're facing losses. JP Morgan Chase announced yesterday that they might lose up to $2 billion from their Tesla investments. This could make banks more careful about lending money to other businesses, which might slow down economic growth. The government is trying to calm things down. The Federal Reserve has said they might lower interest rates to help the economy, which is something they usually only do when things look bad. Lower interest rates make it cheaper for people and businesses to borrow money, which can help keep the economy moving. Looking ahead, experts are divided on what might happen next. Some think this is just a temporary problem that will fix itself in a few months. Others worry that we might be heading for a bigger economic downturn. If the situation gets worse, here's what might happen. First, the government might need to spend billions of dollars to help stabilize the market, similar to what happened during the 2008 financial crisis. This could mean less money for other important things like schools, roads, and healthcare. Second, many companies might start laying off workers to save money. This has already started at some tech companies, with over 10,000 jobs cut in the past month. Third, people might become more careful with their money, spending less on things they don't absolutely need. This could hurt businesses that sell things like clothes, electronics, and restaurant meals. The good news is that the economy was pretty strong before this happened. Unemployment was low, and many businesses were doing well. This means we're in a better position to handle problems than we were during other financial crises. For now, financial advisors are telling people not to panic. Making sudden decisions about your money during times like these often leads to bigger losses. Instead, they suggest thinking long-term and remembering that the stock market has always recovered eventually from past downturns. The next few weeks will be crucial in determining whether this situation stabilizes or gets worse. Government regulators, business leaders, and everyday investors are all watching closely, hoping that the worst might already be behind us.